Alright, geometry students, here I am in IXL again, working on standard N.13, proofs involving quadrilaterals, part 1. It says here that IJ, segment IJ is parallel to, so we've got segment IJ, draw a little parallel symbol there, is parallel to segment GH, so those are parallel. Cool, those are parallel. And angle H is congruent to angle J. So we know that this angle is congruent to this angle here. Complete the proof that shows that segment GI is congruent to segment HI. So we know that IJ is parallel to GH, given, check. All right, and we know that angle H is congruent to angle J, given, fantastic. Then we know that angle HGI, let's pull another color in here, HGI, that is congruent to GIJ. These are congruent. Why? Because we've got parallel lines with a transversal segment. Those are alternate interior angles, okay? And then we also know that GI is congruent to segment GIY by our reflexive property of congruence. So, with that said, it looks to me like we've got two triangles that are congruent. Take a moment, think about it. We've got angle, angle, side, angle, angle, side, angle, angle, side congruence. So this is our angle, angle, side congruence theorem. All right, so those two triangles are congruent, and if those two triangles are indeed congruent, then we know that corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. So segment GJ is therefore congruent to segment HI, and that's CPCTC. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Submit. Fantastic. Got it right. Got it right. Let's get rid of those annotations. Let's do one more real quick. Looks like we've got triangles again. We want to complete the proof that segment SV is congruent to segment TU. We know that UV is perpendicular to SV. That's given. So, UV is perpendicular to SV. That's given there. And we know that angle SUT is congruent to angle USV. So USV, these angles, they've already marked them for us. Those are congruent, given. And we also know that segment ST is perpendicular to segment TU. That's also given by this right angle symbol. We know that angle T is congruent to angle V because all right angles are congruent. And we also know that SU is congruent to SU by the reflexive property of congruence. With all that said, looks again like we've got angle, angle, side, angle, angle, side congruence. These triangles are congruent by our angle, angle, side congruence theorem. With that said, we know that we have a set or a pair of congruent triangles, therefore corresponding parts of those congruent triangles are congruent. In this case, segment SV is congruent to segment TU. So, fantastic. Proof completed. All right, all right. And then you got to give a reason there. Let's jump a level. Let me get rid of the stray annotations on the page. There we go. Now we've got to put in 3 reasons. I really feel like you guys can handle that. I'm going to jump another level. Basically apply the thought process we just did a second ago. Instead of having 2 reasons to fill in, you've got 3. Now we're diving into, now we got to write the whole proof on our own. This is what I was looking for. This is a little more challenging, right? Well, let's see what we've got going on. We've got WZ is perpendicular to YZ. So we know that WZ is perpendicular to YZ. I'm going to mark that with a right angle marking. Perpendicular lines that create a right angle. XY is perpendicular to WX. So we've got segment XY perpendicular to segment WX. We'll put a perpendicular right angle symbol there. And YZ is parallel to WX. So we know that YZ, segment YZ, all right, that's my best attempt at a triangle right now. We're going to try that again. Try that again. So we know that YZ, a little bit better. YZ is parallel to WX. Okay, so parallel lines. Complete the proof that segment XY is congruent to segment WZ. Well, I believe this statement here was given. That was given to us earlier. This statement here was also given. Fantastic. And segment YZ parallel to segment WX, that was also given. We had 3 things given to us We like it when lots of information is given. All right, so now we have angle X is congruent to angle Z. Why? Well, those are right angles. All right angles are congruent, folks. All right angles are congruent. Excuse me. So angle XWY, angle XWY. Let's make sure we mark that. I'm going to use angle XWY, purple again. There we go. Is congruent to angle WYZ, WYZY. We've got parallel lines, transversal segment. Those are alternate interior angles. Alternate interior angles there. So alternate interior angles theorem says that those angles are congruent. And WY is congruent to WY. We've seen that in multiple proofs. That's our reflexive property of congruence. I think I just passed it. There you go. Make sure you pick congruence and not equality. We're talking about the angle and not the angle measure in this moment. So that's the reflexive property of congruence. Make sure you select the right one there. So what do we have going on? Well, it looks like to me we've got angle, angle, side, angle, angle, side congruence again. Angle, angle, side congruence again. And because I've got two triangles within this quadrilateral that are congruent, I know that corresponding parts of those congruent triangles are congruent, and therefore segment XY is congruent to segment WZ by CPCTC. CPCTC comes up a lot at the end of proofs because once we've proven two triangles or sometimes figures are congruent, then I can use that information to show that the other parts of those triangles or the other parts of those congruent figures are also congruent as long as they're corresponding. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. So keep that in mind. I got to get rid of my annotations real quick. Let's scroll down. Let's check our work. Well done, well done, well done. Fantastic. Once you go up a level, you'll go to the challenge zone. Within the challenge zone, you've actually got to write a statement and give the reason and then potentially add a line. Why don't you look at this one real quick? I'm going to pause the video. Why don't you pause it as well? Give this one a look over and we'll solve it together in just a moment. All right, now that you've had a chance to read this problem, I've made some markings. I've marked these angles congruent because these angles are shown to be congruent based upon alternate interior angles theorem. Also based upon the fact that we had two sets of parallel lines. And then also in the proof they tell us that segment FH is congruent to segment FH by our reflexive property of congruence. Well, what we're trying to prove is that segment FI is congruent to segment GH. Well, gee, that would be really easy if I knew I had two triangles within this quadrilateral that were congruent, and then I could just use corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Well, it turns out that we do have that. Look at this. We've got angle, side angle, angle, side angle. We've got angle, side angle congruence. How are we going to write this thing out? Or we're going to say triangle. Let's see here. We want to make sure we keep things on the up and up. So I'm just going to say triangle GFH is congruent to triangle. And then we're going to need to start with I. Okay, we want our corresponding parts. So G and I correspond, and then I've got angle F within this triangle. That's the blue one, right? So that corresponds to H in the other triangle, HF. All right, that's our, what is that? We said angle, side angle, didn't we? So angle, side angle congruence theorem. Now we need to add a line. We need to add a line because we need to state that FI, segment FI, is congruent to segment GH. So segment FI is congruent to segment GH. Why? Well, I've already proven that these two triangles are congruent, and now I'm going to show that the corresponding parts are congruent. Well, that follows once we've proven that the triangles are congruent. Let's see if I can find it in our list. There it is. And we should be good to go. I'm going to get rid of those annotations. I showed that the triangles were congruent based upon the information given. Hit submit. Awesome. Fantastic. Well, you've got a few more problems like this as you move through the challenge zone. I feel like I've gone over enough to get you started, and I'll send out another video probably tomorrow for N.14 and maybe for one of the S standards. All right, guys, keep busy. Keep working hard. You're doing a great job. Again, send me an email or a message on Remind if you need any help. Talk to you later.